Midnight. For most, it's just the clock striking 12, a new day. But in my town, for that tent, the old striped one on the edge of the abandoned amusement park, midnight is an invitation, a forbidden invitation. Everyone said, never enter the clown tent at midnight. I thought it was just a story, a local spooky tale. I was wrong, so wrong. What I saw inside, what happens inside when the clock strikes 12, this is my story, my warning. Some curtains should never, ever be opened. Our town, Oak Haven, is like many small towns, quiet on the surface, but with its own dark corners, its own whispered stories passed down from generation to generation. And the darkest of those corners, the one everyone knew about but no one spoke of much above a whisper, was the old carnival on the edge of Blackwood Forest. It hadn't seen a real carnival in decades, just rotting wood, rusting metal, and the one thing that always seemed untouched by time, the old striped clown tent. They called it Chuckles Pavilion on the faded sign above its perpetually closed canvas. But no one called it that. It was just the clown tent. It wasn't always there. That was part of the legend. Sometimes the park would sit empty for years. Then one morning, usually after a particularly dark or stormy night, the tent would just appear. No trucks, no setup crew, just there. And with its arrival, the old warning was once again circulated among children, then teenagers, and even adults were muttering it, stay away, and no matter what happens, never, ever enter the clown tent at midnight. Why midnight? Stories varied. Some said that was when the real show began, a performance not meant for human eyes, one that would steal your soul or your sanity. Others claimed that the clowns inside, if they were clowns, were not bound by our time. And midnight was when the veil between their world and ours was thinnest, when they could interact or feed. Old Hemlock, who lived near the woods, swore he saw it once from a distance at the stroke of 12. He said the tent glowed with a sickly, pulsing light, and the laughter he heard was not human. He never went near the woods again after dark. Disappearances were also part of the legend, though never officially linked. A child who accepted a dare, a couple looking for excitement, they were last seen heading toward the park. Usually their stories were dismissed, runaways, accidents, but we all knew, we all felt it. That tent, it was a hungry thing, and midnight was its dinner bell. For years, I just accepted it, a spooky local legend, something to send a shiver down your spine on Halloween. I never thought I'd be the one to test it. Never thought I'd be stupid enough to ignore the one rule everyone in Oak Haven knew by heart. So if everyone in Oak Haven knew the rule, if we all felt that primal dread looking at that faded striped tarp, why did I go? Why did I break the one taboo that kept this town sleeping, however uncomfortably, at night? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of boredom, skepticism, and, well, a challenge I was too proud to refuse, mixed with a growing, gnawing curiosity that was starting to feel like an obsession. It started with Mark, typical Mark, always needing to be the loudest voice, the biggest skeptic. The tent had reappeared a week earlier, materializing after a bad storm, as the old stories went. We were all talking about it, the usual mix of nervous jokes and genuine shivers. It's just an old tent, guys, Mark scoffed. Probably some homeless guy living in it, or kids using it as a hideout. Midnight show? Bullshit. He looked right at me. I bet you wouldn't last 5 minutes in there at midnight, too scared. The others laughed. I tried to ignore it, but his words stung. I'd always hated being called a coward, and a part of me, the part that devoured ghost stories and urban legends online, was intrigued. What was the deal with midnight? What really went on in that tent? The more I tried to dismiss it, the more the idea took root. It became a personal challenge. I started researching. Not that there was much to research. A few vague mentions in old city files about trespassing problems at the amusement park. A few deleted forum posts from years ago where people claimed to have seen things but were quickly silenced as liars or drunks. The lack of information was almost more convincing. It was as if the city itself was trying to erase the tent from history, from memory. Why? The challenge festered. Mark kept bringing it up, and my own curiosity became an itch I couldn't scratch. I started having dreams about the tent, distorted organ music, laughter that sounded like breaking glass, a smile painted in the dark. I had to know. I told myself it was for the thrill, to prove Mark wrong, to get a good story for my little blog where I debunked local myths, a pathetic precursor to what Urban Echoes does, I guess. But deep down, I guess I wanted it to be real. I wanted to see something no one else had seen. So I made a plan. The following Saturday, midnight, I would go. I would film the whole thing. I would emerge 5 minutes later, a local hero, a legend debunked. How wrong I had been. Unbelievably, catastrophically wrong. The week leading up to that Saturday was weird. It was all I could think about. The tent, midnight. Every creak in my apartment made me jump. Every shadow seemed to lengthen and turn into a painted smile. I told Mark I was in. He just smirked. Sure you are. Bring me a souvenir. The others were a mix of nervous excitement and genuine concern. Dude, are you sure about this? Sarah asked, her voice tight. I just ignored it, acting like it was no big deal. Inside, I was a wreck. Saturday finally arrived, the longest day of my life. I tried to act normal, but everything felt amplified. Every tick of the clock was a countdown. By 11 p.m., I was a bundle of nerves. I told my parents I was going to sleep over at a friend's house, a lie that had already weighed heavily on me by then. I grabbed my backpack, set my phone to video, and headed out into the Oak Haven night. It was too quiet. No cars, no distant parties. Just the moon, a cold silver disk, watching me like an unblinking eye. The walk to the old fairgrounds took about 20 minutes. Each step felt heavier than the last. The closer I got, the more the ambient light of the city seemed to recede, swallowed up by the looming darkness of Blackwood Forest behind me and the desolate countryside ahead. And there it was. The clown tent. In the moonlight, it looked different. The faded stripes seemed to almost glow with a sickly, dull light. The smile painted above the tarp at the entrance, that grotesque, unchanging chuckles, seemed wider, more predatory. The air around it was cold, unnaturally still. No wind rustled its tarp. And the smell, that faint, sickly smell of stale popcorn, but with an undercurrent of something else. Something metallic, like old blood or rust. I checked my phone. 11:57 p.m. 3 minutes. My heart was a bird trapped against my ribs. This was it. No turning back. Every instinct screamed at me to run, forget the challenge, forget Mark, forget everything. But my feet kept moving, as if pulled by an invisible thread. I could hear something now, very faint, like music. That hurdy-gurdy music from my dreams, but broken, out of tune. Was it real? Or was my mind already starting to crack? A minute. The silence was absolute, except for that ghost of a melody and the frantic pounding in my own ears. My hand was on the tarp of the entrance. It felt wrong, cold, almost like skin. This was insane, totally insane. But I was here. The clock on my phone turned 00, midnight. The hurdy-gurdy music, if it existed at all, stopped. A new kind of silence descended, heavier, expectant. I took a deep breath and pulled back the tarp. The air inside was wrong, thick, sweet, like rotten cotton candy, mixed with something metallic and sharp. The beam of my flashlight was just swallowed up by the darkness. This place wasn't a tent, not anymore. It was bigger, much bigger inside. The striped walls seemed to stretch on forever, twisting at impossible angles. It was a maze, a circus-themed hell. I called out, "Mark? Liam? Sarah?" My voice just died. No echo, just absorbed by the heavy canvas. I moved forward, trying to find the center or an exit or anything. The hurdy-gurdy music was getting louder, more dissonant. And then I saw them. The clowns. They weren't moving, just standing there. Dozens of them, all different sizes, different costumes, but all with those same dead eyes and those horrible painted-on smiles. I tried to sneak past them. My heart was beating in my throat. As I passed one, a tall one with a ruff that looked like stained bone, his head slowly turned, following me. But his body remained perfectly still. I began to run. The tent was changing. Walls were shifting. Passageways that had been there a second ago disappeared. New ones opened. I was trapped, lost, and the laughter began. Not the recorded kind. This was damp, guttural, coming from the clowns. They weren't standing still anymore. They were moving, not walking, sort of jerking, writhing, like puppets with tangled strings, but fast, so fast. I found a small opening, a rip in the canvas, and squeezed through, desperate. It led to another section, darker, colder. This part smelled like a slaughterhouse, and there were cages, small, rusty cages, and inside them, oh God, I can't even tell what was inside them. Things that used to be human, maybe, twisted, broken, with those same painted-on smiles stitched across their faces. One of them looked at me. His eyes were still alive, full of agony. And he whispered just one word, "Run."
That's when I knew. This wasn't a show. This wasn't a prank. This was a place where they made clowns, where they broke people, where they remade them into these dead-eyed smiling things. And the midnight show wasn't for an audience. We were supposed to be the new exhibits, or the new artists. Run. That single word from that broken thing in the cage, it snapped me out of my trance. The shock, the horror. I was not going to be an exhibit. I was not going to be an artist. I turned and ran, blindly, desperately, back through the shifting maze of canvas and terror. The clowns, they were everywhere now. Some just stood and watched, their painted smiles widening. Others moved. They didn't run like people. They crawled, slithered, their limbs bent at angles that weren't right. One of them, a tall, impossibly thin one with long, spidery fingers, nearly caught me. I felt his cool touch brush my hair as I ducked beneath a hanging, grinning effigy. The laughter was deafening, echoing from the impossible angles of the tent, bouncing off the canvas walls that seemed to be closing in. I saw a flash of something, not the sickly inner glow of the tent, but moonlight. Dim, distant. A rip in the canvas? A way out. I ran toward it, ripping the fabric with my bare hands. It ripped, just a small hole, but enough. I could see the real world outside, the dead amusement park, the normal, indifferent moon. But as I began to squeeze, a hand grabbed my ankle, cold, strong, with long, sharp nails that dug into my skin like claws. It was one of them, the one with the stained ruff. His face appeared in the rip, upside down, that painted smile wider than any human mouth should be. He was laughing, a silent, terrible laugh. I kicked, I screamed. I don't know what happened. There was a ripping sound, pain, agonizing pain. And then I was falling, rolling out of the tent onto the damp grass of the amusement park. I jumped to my feet, ignoring the fire in my ankle, and ran. I ran like I'd never run before. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. Not until I was back on my street, under the familiar orange glow of the streetlights, the sound of the city waking up around me. The tent was gone. The amusement park was empty, just dew on the grass, like it had never been there. But my ankle, it was bleeding, and clutched in my hand was a piece of faded striped canvas and a single long red string from a balloon. The price of admission, I guess, or maybe the price of escape.
It's been a year now. The physical scars have healed. The others only deepen. Mark still laughs. He doesn't know. No one knows. But that tent, it will come back. It always does. So if you see it, if the clock approaches that forbidden hour, please learn from me. Don't go in. Just run. Some tickets are too expensive. Welcome to the network. Are you still there? Tuned in? The broadcast, it evolves. It expands. You've caught a glimpse of what lurks behind the static, the normal programming, in the dead hours when the universe whispers its darkest secrets. At Urban Echoes, we are like antennas, picking up these forbidden signals. We archive the echoes of other midnight broadcasts. We decipher the rules of other entities communicating through the veil of reality. Want to know what other dangers lurk on the unknown frequencies or in the urban legends your city is trying to forget? Tune in to these other coordinates. They are other glimpses of the abyss, other stories that can make you or break you. If you want to stay connected to our network of investigation of the unexplained, if you want to continue receiving alerts about the horrors that hide in plain sight, sign up. Join the Urban Echoes community. We'll keep watching the screens in the wee hours of the morning so that maybe, just maybe, you won't have to do it alone. Or so that when it does stare back, you'll know you're not alone. Good night, and watch out for the static. It might be watching you.